They were called the apex, a species so feared their very name could silence the boldest tongues. Towering monstrosities of sinew and scale, they had evolved not only to dominate but to conquer. Their biology was a masterpiece of destruction, talons that could rip through steel, hide impervious to plasma, and senses sharp enough to anticipate attacks before they came. Yet their true power lay in their minds, a predatory intelligence honed to exploit weakness. No civilization had resisted them for long. They were hunters, and the galaxy was their prey. Where brute force failed, they wielded technology, a fusion of biology and machine so advanced it seemed like magic to lesser species. Their ships, vast and menacing, blotted out suns. Planets were stripped bare of resources, their people enslaved or exterminated. Their motto, etched into every battle cry and decree: fear is the first step to obedience. And obedience was universal. Under the shadow of the apex, the galaxy languished. Entire star systems paid tribute, funneling their best resources to avoid annihilation. Rulers groveled, soldiers surrendered without a fight. The few who tried to resist became cautionary tales, obliterated, their worlds left as smoldering warnings. Over time, the apex grew complacent, not from weakness but from the sheer absence of worthy opponents. The galaxy offered no challenges, no prey that could truly test their might. They had become gods in a universe of cowed mortals. Then, whispers began to circulate. Faint, almost laughable at first. A fringe species from an unremarkable corner of the galaxy was refusing to bow. They lacked the grandeur of ancient empires or the might of established powers. Primitive was the word often used, reliant on crude metal ships and an atmosphere-bound homeworld. Yet reports persisted. This species, called humans, had repelled not one, but several incursions from apex forces. Among the enslaved races, the rumors sparked something forgotten: hope. The humans, it was said, fought with reckless ingenuity. Their victories weren't born of superior strength but an unnerving unpredictability. Predator scouting fleets vanished without explanation. Apex commanders who returned spoke of ambushes, traps, and tactics that defied reason. For the first time in millennia, the apex faced uncertainty. Curiosity turned to intrigue as the apex sought to understand these humans. What made them resist when others crumbled? What gave them the audacity to challenge the gods? Their interest was not admiration. It was the cold scrutiny of hunters seeking to dismantle prey. But beneath their clinical observations lurked something foreign, something they could not name. For the first time, the apex began to feel the faint stirrings of unease. The first encounter was meant to be routine, a simple act of intimidation. A lone predator scout ship arrived at the edge of human-controlled space, its mission clear: assess the newcomers, demand their surrender, and if necessary, destroy their resistance. Their target was a small outpost on a barren moon, an easy target for a species accustomed to effortless victories. The initial approach was met with silence, the outpost appearing lifeless. The scout ship descended cautiously, its crew ready to assert dominance. But as the first apex soldiers breached the perimeter, their equipment inexplicably failed. Communication devices emitted only static, advanced targeting systems flickered, then died. Moments later, explosions erupted from concealed mines, tearing through their ranks. From the shadows, humans struck. Their weapons were crude by galactic standards, but they wielded them with precision and ferocity. Apex soldiers, accustomed to overwhelming their enemies, found themselves hunted. Every movement was anticipated, every advantage neutralized. By the time they retreated to their ship, they had lost a third of their crew. As the damaged vessel limped away, the surviving commander transmitted a single report: primitive, but unpredictably dangerous. The apex did not take the loss lightly. Analysts were tasked with dissecting this new threat, scouring every piece of data they could find about humanity. What they uncovered left them unsettled. Humans were a species shaped by hardship. Their history was a chronicle of wars, disasters, and survival against impossible odds. They had endured ice ages, pandemics, and internal conflicts that should have fractured them permanently. Yet each crisis had only made them stronger. Their adaptability defied logic. From the depths of oceans to the vacuum of space, humans thrived in environments that should have been their graves. They displayed an uncanny ability to unite when faced with existential threats, setting aside their differences to ensure survival. "They're ants with fire," one apex leader remarked grimly. "Insignificant until they swarm." Still, the apex believed this defiance could not withstand the full weight of their power. A fleet was dispatched to a human colony, larger and more advanced than the scout ship that had failed before. This time, they would end the humans' insolence with overwhelming force. But the humans were prepared. They had studied the apex just as intensely, learning to exploit their arrogance and rigid strategies. As the fleet approached, human forces refused direct engagement, instead deploying a web of traps and diversions. Decoy signals lured predator ships into asteroid fields rigged with explosives. Ground forces used holographic decoys and subterranean tunnels to outmaneuver the invaders. The apex commanders, overconfident in their superiority, underestimated the humans' cunning. Their fleet suffered catastrophic losses before they realized the scale of the trap. Ships meant to inspire terror were reduced to drifting hulks, their crews scattered and demoralized. When the order to retreat finally came, it marked an unprecedented event, the first recorded defeat of the apex in millennia. For humanity, it was a victory born of ingenuity and resolve. For the apex, it was an ominous sign. They had underestimated their prey, and they would not make the same mistake again. The humans didn't fight alone for long. Word of their defiance spread like wildfire, reaching the ears of enslaved and oppressed species across the galaxy. For beings who had only ever known submission, the stories of humanity's resistance were almost too incredible to believe. Yet they were true. Humans were fighting the apex, and they were winning. Their victories were not born from overwhelming power but from sheer determination and ingenuity. This realization sparked something long buried in the hearts of the enslaved: hope. Humans didn't just fight for themselves. Wherever they went, they protected the weak and vulnerable, shielding them from apex retaliation. Entire planets, once resigned to despair, began to rebel, emboldened by the example of their unlikely saviors. Stories of human valor became legends. Tales of a lone human soldier holding off an apex squad to save an alien child, or of a human engineer who outsmarted a predator fleet with nothing but salvaged parts, spread across the stars. To the oppressed, humans were not conquerors but liberators, an idea more powerful than any weapon. The apex, for all their dominance, had never faced an opponent like this. Fear was their primary tool, a weapon that had never failed, until now. Humans were maddeningly unafraid. They fought against impossible odds, often at great personal cost, and yet their resolve only seemed to grow. The apex began to see something they had never encountered before, an enemy that could not be broken, because their will came not from fear but from hope. For the first time in their history, the apex felt fear themselves. It crept into their minds like a shadow, foreign and unwelcome. Their technology, so advanced it bordered on omnipotence, was countered by human creativity in ways they couldn't predict. Their brutal tactics, perfected over millennia, were rendered useless against an enemy that didn't play by their rules. Human strategies were chaotic and unconventional, driven by an unpredictability that defied the apex's calculated logic. What they could not understand, they could not control, and what they could not control terrified them. The fear was compounded by humanity's unsettling willingness to sacrifice. Apex commanders were accustomed to prey that valued survival above all else. Humans, however, fought as if their own lives were secondary to the greater cause. They would risk everything to protect an ally or gain an advantage, a mindset that the apex could not fathom. This relentless defiance gnawed at their confidence, forcing them to question their own superiority. Humans, recognizing the cracks forming in the predator's psyche, began to exploit them. Their tactics extended beyond the battlefield, targeting the very foundation of the apex's strength, their reputation. Captured predator ships were sent back to their territories, their crew missing, with cryptic messages etched into their hulls. Some messages were simple warnings, others taunting riddles, but all served the same purpose: to sow doubt and fear. Psychological warfare became a weapon as effective as any missile. Human operatives spread misinformation, creating phantom fleets and fake uprisings that kept apex forces in a state of constant paranoia. Predator leaders, once united in their dominance, began to turn on each other, accusing one another of incompetence or treachery. The humans had become something the apex had never encountered, a species that didn't just fight their enemies but dismantled them from within. The fear was no longer confined to the battlefield. It spread through the apex hierarchy like a virus, infecting even their most steadfast leaders. They had always seen themselves as the ultimate predators, the masters of the galaxy. But now they were prey, hunted not by strength or numbers but by the terrifying unknown. And that realization was their undoing. The apex had had enough. For all their technological might, psychological warfare, and millennia of dominance, humanity had refused to yield. Now they would make an example of Earth, the homeworld of this insolent species. A fleet larger than anything the galaxy had ever seen gathered at the edge of human space. It was not just an invasion, it was a declaration, a demonstration of apex supremacy. They would not merely conquer Earth, they would erase it. Humanity knew what was coming. The warnings had been clear, the signs unmistakable. But instead of despair, there was resolve. Across the globe, humanity united in a way that had been thought impossible. Nations set aside centuries of differences, pooling every resource, every mind, and every ounce of strength. Allies from liberated species arrived, their fleets ragged but determined, inspired by the humans' defiance. For many, this was not just a fight for Earth, it was a fight for freedom itself. The Apex fleet descended like a storm, blotting out the stars. Their initial bombardments devastated orbital defenses, but the humans had planned for this. Hidden beneath the surface of the planet were shields, weapons, and bunkers built in secret, designed for this very moment. On the ground, a network of coordinated resistance sprang to life. Soldiers, engineers, and civilians worked as one, their actions synchronized by an unshakable purpose. The Apex expected chaos and surrender. What they found was an unyielding wall of defiance. As the battle raged, the humans faced a grim reality. They could not outlast the Apex in a prolonged war. Their adversaries' numbers and firepower were overwhelming. Desperation bred innovation. Deep within Earth's command center, human scientists unveiled a last-ditch strategy, a supermassive electromagnetic pulse, capable of disabling the Apex fleet's advanced technology. The plan was as bold as it was dangerous. To detonate the EMP, a human ship would have to breach the Apex's defensive perimeter, a task almost guaranteed to end in sacrifice. The operation was launched with precise timing. A fleet of decoy ships drew the Apex's attention, opening a narrow window for the EMP vessel to strike. Against impossible odds, the human crew succeeded, unleashing a pulse that rippled across space, rendering the Apex fleet's systems inert. For a moment, silence hung in the void as their invincible armada became a collection of drifting hulks. But the fight was far from over. The EMP had crippled Earth's defenses as well, leaving humans to rely on outdated technology and sheer willpower. Ground battles erupted as Apex troops landed in massive waves, their biological prowess still formidable despite their technological disadvantage. Humans and their allies fought with unrelenting courage, using guerrilla tactics, improvised weapons, and an unbreakable determination to repel the invaders. For every human that fell, another took their place, driven by the knowledge that surrender was not an option. The Apex, for all their strength, began to falter. Their unity, once their greatest strength, fractured under the weight of humanity's defiance. Commanders argued, troops hesitated, and the fear that had begun as a whisper now roared in their minds. These humans, they realized, were not fighting for survival, they were fighting for something greater. And that made them unstoppable. When the Apex finally called for retreat, the cost of the battle was clear. Earth's surface bore the scars of war, cities lay in ruins, and countless lives had been lost. Yet, as the Apex fleet limped away, the humans stood tall. They had endured, and in doing so, they had achieved the unthinkable. The invincible predators of the galaxy had been defeated. As the Apex regrouped, one of their generals spoke what many of them now feared. They aren't predators or prey, there's something worse. Humanity had shown them that strength was not just power or dominance. It was resilience, unity, and the ability to inspire. And as the humans began to rebuild, the galaxy watched, knowing that the age of the apex had ended, and the age of humanity had begun. The fall of the Apex Empire sent shockwaves through the galaxy. For millennia, they had been an unassailable force, their dominance etched into the stars themselves. But now, their fleets were broken, their worlds in disarray. The once mighty Apex scattered, their unity splintered by defeat and the realization that they were no longer invincible. Without the fear they had wielded as a weapon, their empire crumbled under its own weight. In the vacuum left behind, the species they had oppressed for generations began to rebuild. Planets that had known only servitude embraced freedom, their people tentatively stepping into a future they had once thought impossible. But this new era was not without its challenges. The galaxy, fractured and uncertain, turned to humanity, not as conquerors, but as reluctant leaders. The humans, who had rallied the oppressed and brought down the predators, became the cornerstone of a new order. Their philosophy of strength through unity resonated across the stars, a stark contrast to the Apex's reign of terror. Humanity's influence grew, not through domination, but through example. They taught the galaxy that strength was not about crushing others but about standing together. Coalitions formed, alliances strengthened, and a fragile peace began to take shape. Yet, the humans themselves remained cautious, wary of the power they now held. They had seen the dangers of unchecked authority and sought to guide, not rule. In the aftermath, many across the galaxy pondered what made humanity so different. Was it their adaptability, their creativity, or their defiance? Perhaps it was something deeper, a paradoxical blend of imperfection and resilience. Humanity's greatest strength lay in their ability to learn from failure, to rise from every fall stronger than before. Perhaps it's their imperfections that make them invincible, mused one observer, marveling at the species that had defied the impossible. The humans had a remarkable capacity for empathy, even for those who had once been enemies. Former Apex soldiers, abandoned by their shattered empire, were not slaughtered but offered redemption. Such gestures baffled many but solidified humanity's reputation as something entirely new, a species that could inspire loyalty, even from the vanquished. Yet, the galaxy had not simply been freed, it had been irrevocably changed. The void left by the Apex's fall opened the door to both opportunity and danger. New powers began to rise, some eager to claim what the predators had lost, others inspired by humanity's example. The liberated species, united by their shared struggle, pledged to stand with their human allies, forming a coalition that promised to defend the weak and challenge the strong. But humanity knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy, vast and unpredictable, held countless mysteries and threats yet to be faced. And while they had proven their strength, they understood the responsibility that came with it. Their promise was clear: they would not allow the mistakes of the past to be repeated. They would protect those who could not protect themselves and face whatever challenges lay ahead with the same unyielding spirit that had brought them victory. The galaxy no longer feared the predators who once ruled it. Now, it watched humanity, uncertain and awed. Were they saviors, or something far more complicated? As the humans looked to the stars, rebuilding their home and forging new alliances, the question lingered. The galaxy feared predators, the narrator concludes. But now it watches humans, and wonders,